Good afternoon everyone, this is the continuation of Group 7 and we are the Group 8 and the members of Group 8. Ayesa Johen, how the architect responded to COVID-19. Isaac Baluyot, how the architect prepared the individual from the COVID-19. Anthony Respicio, how the architect prepared the individual from the COVID-19. Princess Basit, she will be discussing building constructed during COVID-19. Shara Armijo, she will be discussing Ho Shen Shan and Lei Shan Shen Hospital. Alicia Placido, she will be discussing some implications on the design of future residential architecture. Introduction to design consideration in COVID-19.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the first part of the presentation, the information will answer the question, how the architect responded to COVID-19. It has been an important question for the architecture and design community to address since the coronavirus outbreak began. How is it that one can contribute and make a difference to the world that is plagued by the deadly virus? Before we begin, let's look back in our history where architecture played a significant role in fights against the epidemic. Back then, in 1910, tuberculosis, which is an incurable disease, was at its peak. This led to the construction of Quezon Institute, ordered by former President Manuel L. Quezon. The said hospital was dedicated to tuberculosis treatment and other contagious pulmonary ailments. At present, the Department of Health and the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine are the two of lead agencies in charge of overseeing the research and proper design layout in establishing facilities to handle COVID-19 cases. The first facility is designed by Manila-based architecture firm WTA. In response to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, the Philippine firm has designed temporary structures to increase capacity of hospitals and house people who are under investigation, or PUI. It is an easy-to-build and execute emergency quarantine facility, or EQF, to help accommodate more people and not send patients home because of less rooms. William Tai and Dr. Glenn Angeles collaborated with Major Halagwe and Major Badayo to mobilize the construction of an EQF. With the sudden outbreak that brought fear and shock to many nations, we have to cope up to form solutions. Gauging the spread of the virus and the number of PUIs increasing every day, the main focus of the EQF is to provide quick construction and easy scalability. The main driving force behind EQF has been speed, closely followed by scalability and buildability. The motivation to actualize the idea comes from the fact that these facilities can control the rapid spread of the virus and flatten the curve in the process. Its structure has been designed as a simple form with such basic materials that it can be built in a span of 5 days. Since yung resources natin ay limited and yung logistics that time ay mahirap under enhanced community quarantine, ang facility na kailangan ay yung hindi nagre-require ng maraming manpower and construction equipment. The EQFs are meant to use materials that are readily available and understood by anyone such that any worker can work with it, not just throughout the city, but nationwide. As you can see in the picture of the floor plan and the structure of this design, each facility measures 6 by 26 meters and will have 15 beds and 2 toilets. Patients and healthcare workers have different entrances, with doctors having their own external testing box to check patients without having to go inside the facility. Base sa investigasyon ng World Health Organization, nagkakaroon ng hawaan ng virus dahil sa sneeze and cough, so we are asked to wear masks. Since yung spread is airborne, the architect must consider how the air circulation will work sa loob ng facility. Airflow is directed one way from front to rear, with side vents that discharge air away from each bed and prevent recirculation. The non-complex building materials used are wood pallets, wood frames, insulation foam, and polyethylene sheets. In addition, the designs have been posted online and made open source so that anyone can use them. The company hopes that more organizations will adopt the designs and use them as they see fit to build more facilities more quickly. As on April 15, 2020, the WTA Architecture plus Design Studio, along with many collaborators, completed 17 EQFs to reach their goal production of 62 units, providing approximately 1,000 beds. Along with that, Filipino architects in the DOH, RITM, and LCP are already applying architectural, medical, and engineering solutions. The second proposed design is made by Architect Rico and Architect Florendo. Architectural solutions were formulated for the designs such as cargo containers and repurposed government-owned structures like unused buildings, gymnasiums, sports centers, convention centers, covered courts, and even classrooms in public schools are to be used. Each has its own advantages and disadvantages, depending on the different parameters and requirements. Here is the design of architect Joel V. Rico, a past national president of the Philippine Institute of Architects, United Architects of the Philippines, Del Pilar chapter. The Department of Education has allowed its school nationwide to be repurposed for this main reason. However, some modifications will have to be implemented, such as repainting of walls with antibacterial paints and additional lights and electric fans. The second one is, according to the design of architect Florendo, he used the concept of modular coordination system considering commercial dimensions of major materials. Design volume management is applied in order to minimize costs and wastage. Panels are easily sourced materials with lightweight metal frames. Components are collapsible and easy to transport. Lastly, panels to be applied with self-cleaning and germ-retardant paint. Some of these facilities may not fully address the requirements but could be considered as a temporary solution at the time. These were conceptualized to augment the needs for such facilities as the fastest and easiest solutions, as these quarantine facilities may help existing hospitals protect its more vulnerable patients and health personnel against the risk of contracting the disease. The pandemic has called us to refocus our interests from being a solitary designer to multi-professional and multi-scale design collaborators in order to address a worldwide health problem in pursuit of medical and design solutions.
Next is how the architect prepared the individual from the COVID-19. By conducting a research about the COVID and its causes, architects can be prepared and help the individual like spaces can be intentionally designed to help prevent, contain, and treat infectious disease including COVID-19. Some have put up tents to help the homeless during the COVID-19 crisis. Heated tents with bathrooms and showers have space for 40 beds for infected homeless people to get the care they need away from the shelter community. So, karamihan dito sa Philippines, may mga emergency tents din tayo sa mga private and public hospital, lalo na sa mga ibang city hall dito sa Pilipinas. Isa talagang focus point na mag-prepare ng isang emergency tent when it comes to crisis. Ayan po, makikita nyo guys, isa sa mga naging preparation ng architect sa COVID-19 is mga emergency tent. Yan po yung example na. Yan po.
Building constructed during COVID-19. The first one is Batangas Port Integrated Passenger Terminal Building. It is bigger, modern, and world-class that how the newly completed passenger terminal building of the Port of Batangas. It is another milestone to the country's maritime sector. Asian's Terminal Incorporated inaugurates improved Batangas Port Passenger Terminal Building, and the ports operate until the newly complete Phase 1 and 2A of the Integrated Passenger Terminal Building or PTB project of Batangas Port on June 14, 2022. Spanning 15,000 square meters, the upgraded PTB can now serve more than 4,000 passengers at any given time, double its previous capacity. Phase 2B of the project will further increase capacity by 2,000 passengers, totaling 6,000 passengers at any given time, and will make it biggest PTV nationwide. ATI invested 1.5 billion pesos for the project that is expected for completing in 2023. And if the passengers need the assistance, there's an information help desk with customer service staff that's ready to assist 24/7. Next is the facilities of passenger terminal building. It is fully air-conditioned and PWD-friendly facilities to offer and more convenient and comfortable seat travel for passengers. First is the waiting area lounges or VIP lounge. Next is the charging station and the water station. Next is the nursing room for breastfeeding mom and a multi-faith prayer room that available for all religions. Next, the ticketing system is like a modern airport amenity. Lastly, the pasalubong center. In the passenger terminal building, it has a protocol and guidelines. First is the terminal personnel shall wear masks and gloves at all times. Second, commuters shall undergo body temperature checking prior to entering the terminal. Next is the commuters shall wear masks and observe social distancing. And lastly, ticket seller possible be separated in a booth to limit physical interaction with commuters. The upgraded port is now capable of delivering a more efficient, seamless, safer, and convenient maritime travel to our local and foreign visitors. The PTB or Passenger Terminal Building further provide livelihood to Batangueños as more jobs opportunity will be opened and expected to usher economic and tourism growth in Calabarzon. The next structure or building is the SM City Rojas, a super mall of SM Prime Holding Incorporation officially opened its door on April 8, 2022 to bring many firsts in the city in shopping, leisure, and entertainment amid the relaxed COVID-19 restrictions. It is located at Armando Boulevard in Barangay Baybay, Rojas City, Capiz. The SM City Rojas offer 2 levels of shopping, dining, and entertainment experience with almost 1,000 parking slots and a transport hub. It is spanning almost 41 square meters of a gross floor area or GFA. SM City Rojas also offer an atrium that features a large open-air, skylighted space design, incorporating distinctive modern texture and fascinating colors. Next is the background of SM. The SM story began in 1958 when a founder, Henry C. Sr., opened the first Shoe Mart store in downtown Manila, introducing new merchandising and retail concepts. At that time, Mr. C, who has been honored as the father of Philippine retail by the Philippine Retailer Association, stood that if he could sell a pair of shoes to every Filipino, he could be a successful man. In the 1960s, Shoe Mart expanded its shoe store chain and became one of the pioneers in the new urban center in Makati and Cubao. Also, in 1985, saw the opening of First Shopping Center, SM City North EDSA, during the time of a major political economic crisis. But the mall was the instant success, paving way for the so-called mailing phenomenon in the Philippines. Malls become part of the Filipino-style place where families and friends could shop together, dine together, and have fun together in the world-class surroundings. Next is the protocol or guidelines in SM Mall. First, observe social distancing. Second, personnel and customers shall wear masks. Next is the squad shanty. When the kids are allowed to go in the mall, the SM expanding squad shanty to aim at making malling a safer and more memorable experience for kids. Robo Heroes came down to earth to make sure that every super kid is safe. The Squad Shanty is the newest addition to SM Super Mall Disinfection Team, a unit that makes SM Mall the safest go-to mall for all types of needs, one sanitation at a time. It's armed with HD cameras for face recognition, a touchscreen, and a microphone to greet the kids, adding more fun to their malling experience. Lastly, every Squad Shanty members is equipped with a Food and Drug Administration approved disinfectant that can kill 99.9% of microorganisms within a second. The mist it releases is 100% all natural, hypoallergenic, non-toxic, and non-corrosive.
And the next structure built during COVID-19 are Hosenshan and Leisenshan Hospital, and it is located in Wuhan, China. As we all know, Wuhan, China is the epicenter of COVID-19, and this hospital was built in just 12 days. And here's a video about Hosenshan and Leisenshan Hospital.
武汉市现在紧急开工，在建设2家医院，一个叫火神山医院，一个叫雷神山医院。那么这2家医院呢，加在一起，计划是2300张床位。
典型病例，特别是一些疑难危重的病例。
Hosenshan Hospital. Numerous of bulldozer, excavators, and other pieces of earth-moving machinery was used to prepare the land in the initial phase. After that, several layers of concrete and matting were put down. The initial omnibus construction team was understaffed, forcing many employees to work two 12-hour stints. Fabricated components were used in the hospital construction to speed up the installation process. In order to keep the unit off the ground, they were placed atop pillars. Each apartment has 2 beds and is roughly 10 square meters.
In order to keep the airborne bacteria from leaving the hospital, each room is negatively pressured.
And kaya din mabilis nagawa ang Ocean Shan Hospital ay mahigit 10,000 construction worker ang gumawa nito. And this is the nursing unit module of Leishan Shan Hospital. All modules are fabricated in the factory, transported to the road around the site, assembled outside the area, and hoisted. Small pipelines inside the ward module are reserved and embedded simultaneously. Some unique function rooms, such as pharmacies, use boxes as the basic unit, forming a spacious use space through the different horizontal and vertical directions.
Now, for the last topic of our group, I will be discussing about some implications on the design of future residential architecture in post-COVID environment. Implication means a conclusion that can be inferred from the study findings, either a theoretical or practical. According to the research paper released by the Journal of Green Building, new residential building in the post-COVID environment must embrace the principles of universal design and incorporate the lessons from COVID-19. Thus, the residence needs to be fully functional under normal usage with an added ability to function in a pandemic environment. Based on it, they form a conceptual framing to visualize the operational spaces and design principles for this post-COVID residential environment. It is in order to lessen or minimize the likelihood of transmission through structural, physical, and practical means. The image below shows the four spaces needed. First is the largely uncontrollable external space. Second, a space with restrictable access or the delivery space that restricts contact with another person. Third, a containment space that is designed to reduce an accidental introduction of a virus load into the home. And the fourth one is the threat-reduced domestic habitation space, where its functions will be discussed more later on. Next, I will be discussing about the implications for new construction. First one is the containment space. This space is actually needed to establish a boundary between the uncontrollable external world where possible transmission takes place and the internal personal universe, which is the inside of your home. This space functions in order to allow the occupants of the house to shed and store external clothing and footwear as well as external shopping bags. This is made as a response to what we practiced before the pandemic hits, because before we usually carry our clothing and sometimes even footwear indoors that possibly brings germs or bacteria from the outside. And with the situation we are in now, it is essential to have a space where we can shed and store this kind of things. Second, it gives us an opportunity to transfer any acquisitions or shopping following this infection from external shopping bags to receptacles restricted to internal use. Just like the first one, it is also to limit the virus transmission that could have sit on the shopping bags and also to disinfect it. Lastly, the containment space must contain a sink with a running warm water. This is to allow the occupants to wash their hands upon arrival and again prior to entering the internal space after shoes and external clothing are removed and stored. And those components discussed can be seen in this floor plan. The sink, the external clothing, footwear, and shopping bags are left in the containment space. When designing the functionality of the containment space, priority should be given to contactless options such as motion-activated lights and water taps or faucets. The second implication is the threat to reduce internal residential space. Due to human socialization, any post-pandemic home design needs to take this into account or consideration through functionally differentiating and compartmentalizing, or in other words, divide into sections the internal spaces. Because human interacts with each other at various levels of intimacy, frequently mixing formal, work, and private spheres, this could lead to potentially exposing the occupants to viruses or bacteria that are unintentionally introduced or brought by the visitors. And as you can see from the diagram, the spaces are well divided between the guests and occupants in order to limit the transmission towards the private or sleeping space of the residents, because as we all know, the virus could survive for prolonged periods on various surfaces. The third implication for the new construction is the space suitable for self-isolation. First, residents will require a bedroom with an ensuite, meaning a bedroom connected to a bathroom or a bathroom that is directly connected to the bedroom. This is needed to have one or two people safely self-isolate without putting other occupants at undue risk by using a shared bathroom. Second, the room needs to be large enough that a temporary workstation can be added. As the isolated person could be a student or worker, this would allow the occupant to carry out work functions to the extent that their health permits. Third, from a technical perspective, bedroom will require an extra individual filter system, while the humidity exhaust of the ensuite has to be vented externally rather than into the roof cavity. Because air movement from the bedroom into the remainder of the internal residential space needs to be prevented or at least minimized, since the virus could transmit in this way. As one, in order to allow the isolating occupants safe access to the outside environment, the bedroom should open to an external but self-containable courtyard or open space. And based on the floor plan, the bedroom has a door connecting to the courtyard space. It may be an open space but also contained due to the fence dividing it from the other space of the courtyard that could be accessed by the other occupants without having to interact with them. The fourth one is the communal spaces accessible to visitors. For visitors, it is suggested to have a larger room space that allows guests to spread out but that are also contained, so that the sleeping section of the residence can be shielded by using doors from aerosols or the fine particles emitted by the guests. Second, the design of interior spaces needs to consider sound dampening, since aerosol emissions or transmissions of fine particles during speech tend to increase with voice loudness. Third, the communal dining or guest spaces need to be separately zoned with individual filter systems. Similar to what was discussed earlier, the condition for centrally ducted air conditioning servicing the master bedroom or self-isolation space, this also extends to the communal dining or guest space, guest bedroom, as well as the guest toilet or bathroom. Lastly, the internal layout of the built environment and the associated movement patterns have an influence over the proximity with which people pass each other and thus enter another person's aerosol cone. For example, the width of the corridors and the positioning of doors should be planned well in order to avoid people pass each other too close that they can enter another person's aerosol cone. Particular consideration should be given to the flow of visitors admitted to the residence. And the fifth one, or the last one, is the communal spaces in apartment buildings. Just like in the communal spaces accessible to visitors, the design and width of the corridors and the positioning of doors as bottlenecks will have an influence to the proximity between people. The word bottlenecks used here means a narrow route. Since the corridors and positioning of doors can create a narrow route for people, they will be forced to pass each other closely, giving the chance for the virus to transmit faster. So it is a consideration that should be taken account to the flow of visitors admitted to the residence. Second, as ventilation of corridor spaces has been shown to be a factor restricting the spread of COVID-like disease. This one shows that the external communication corridors should be reconsidered with design solutions that provide privacy by shielding users from being viewed from the street or neighboring apartment blocks. Third one, for apartment buildings, multiple elevators will be required. In a pandemic environment where social distancing is required, the standard carrying capacity of an elevator cabin of 10 persons is now reduced to merely 2 persons. Since it will be unavoidable in peak demand that people will disregard the social distancing rules, it will be better to have multiple elevators in an apartment building that will be suitable in this pandemic environment. But there have been more than 80% of infectious diseases reported to be transmitted through contact with contaminated surfaces like in the elevator. So it is suggested to have contactless pathways to reduce the COVID-19 disease. Like for an example, in one building design, the headquarters of BIA in UAE, they introduced innovative features which include touch-free lifts with foot-activated call buttons. So with this, users will no longer need to press the call buttons using their fingers. That helps with the virus transmission, but rather will use a foot-activated call button. Lastly, with all these implications for new construction, these were actually suggested by the developers of suburban estates, wherein these factors are response to the post-COVID new residential buildings that are containment space, additional wet cells, compartmentalization of ingress and egress, compartmentalization of internal usage, and the installation of zoned separately stacked air conditioning with additional filter units. And in conclusion, the design advocated here will not prevent owners from being infected, but will reduce probabilities and will allow for infected residents to engage in self-isolation and receive home care while minimizing transmission risk to other occupants and co-residents.
Singing low while I pop a bottle off of ya. Chain swinging, clang clang, and it costs a lot. Bitch, I'm always at the guala, yeah. And you are not badass beat. Keep on going till you hit the spot. Whoa.